Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Capt Nostalgia. I am a writer and podcaster here, as well as the director of our film festival called Horrific Hope. If you guys would like information on where to get tickets, see this year's lineup, and all of our sponsors, click the links in the show notes below, as well as also check out our podcasts, plural, and more movie reviews like this, but most importantly, our mental health resource library, all of which you guys can find links for in the show notes below. Now, typically, I'm in our studio and doing these kind of reviews, but as you can see, I'm in the car, waiting on my second feature of the night, which is going to be Michael Bay's Ambulance, and yes, I will be in studio for that one. But I honestly didn't want to wait until I got back to the studio to kind of give out my thoughts on Sonic, because, well, I have Sonic feelings. Let's talk about them. Let's jump into a little plot synopsis. The sequel to 2020's Sonic the Hedgehog picks up right where the first film left off, and Dr. Robotnik comes back, and this time he is teamed up with Knuckles, voiced by Idris Elba, and they're basically trying to track down Sonic to eventually find the Master Emerald, which is going to give them ultimate power. I think I messed up saying a couple of terminology there, and if that happens and you've seen the movie, I deeply apologize. I would not in the slightest way call myself a gamer, and so I'm going to put this disclaimer up front. This is a movie that is made for video game fans. This is a movie that is made for Sonic fans. Like, if you love 2020's film, you're going to love this one. A lot of my thoughts are going to be looking at the film itself, not necessarily the ties to the adaptation aspect of it, but I will say that I am a huge fan of 2020's Sonic the Hedgehog. One of the more interesting things that separates this film from its predecessor is the use of action. One of the things that separates this film from its predecessor is the fact that this is a mostly animated movie. What I mean by that is we spend the majority of the film following around Sonic, following around Knuckles, following around Tails, and really the human aspect of this movie feels like an afterthought. The only human that we really spend the majority of the time with is Jim Carrey. That said, this is a Jim Carrey movie. Like, I know people are coming for Sonic, but Jim Carrey once again absolutely commands the screen. His second time suiting up as the Robotnik Eggman character is nothing short of incredible. This is one of the best performances of his career. And if anything of what Carrey has been saying while on the press tour for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, that this is indeed going to be his last movie, he is leaving off on a very high note. Carrey just has really good comedic timing in this, and not just in a, like, yes, I get that he's a comedian, like, that's where he got his start. Robotnik is an extremely fun villain, and Carrey magnificently walks the tightrope between being this, like, very maniacal villain, but also this very campy performance with extraordinary precision. Ben Schwartz returning again as Sonic is another great addition to this movie. I'm going to say they brought in one of the most iconic Parks and Rec moments for John Ralphio into this movie, and I fangirled real hard. I don't know, Ben Schwartz kind of got his breakout performance being John Ralphio on Parks and Rec with Amy Poehler and Chris Pratt. Idris Elba as Knuckles. Let's talk about that. Idris Elba, I was kind of taken back when the announcement was made because he seems like a little bit too serious of an actor to kind of come on board and take on the role of someone like Knuckles. Said it, as I mentioned in the beginning, I know nothing about Knuckles. I know he is a almost kind of like an inverted version of Sonic. That was what I knew coming into this movie. But I can legitimately say that Idris Elba in this movie was fantastic, and I am super excited for the Paramount Plus series and the future of his take on the character in the series. Funniest moments in this movie come from Elba. I'm not going to tell you when, and I'm not going to tell you where, but again, I'm excited to see where he takes this character. To say that this movie runs on a little bit too long for my liking. You look at the first film, and I get it's kind of unfair to compare one to the other. However, I think that film, its timing and its pacing and its comedic delivery all wrapped up is just such a tight ball that is just such a great introduction to the character. That said, with this one, you're not only coming back into picking up where Sonic and Robotnik left us in 2020, but also at the same time, like, you're having an origin story now for the world building aspect of who Sonic is, along with who Tails and who Knuckles are. And I think that it does a great job in terms of origin. I just think that there are certain sequences that could have been cut from this movie and just made a tighter pace. There's a whole subplot of, like, James Marsden's sister-in-law getting married that does come into play, but it probably shouldn't be as predominant in the movie as it is. It's just one example. Like, don't get me wrong, I truly loved some of those scenes, but I didn't need them. But that's just one example of a few scenes in this film that, and a few subplots as well, that kind of just bogged the runtime down just a little bit. As I mentioned when I started this video, before I shared my thoughts, I said that this is going to be a movie for gamers and people that are hardcore fans of the video game. There are moments that happened, and I love watching movies like this with audiences that these types of movies are made for, because when something doesn't necessarily click with me, it clicks with those around me. It brings me a whole lot of joy. There are definitely a lot of moments in this movie that will make Sonic fans cheer. And that brings me joy, happy to report. Like, this might not necessarily be the movie for me, and that's 100% fine. Alright, that said, let's run this through our Rorschach rating scale. Go ahead and give this one a 3 out of 5. I really enjoyed this film. It's a fun atmosphere. It's a good time. It's funny. It's just all over the place, like crazy fun, great visuals, and again, it's just there are certain aspects of this movie that I wish would have just been a little bit tighter, a little bit shaved, but overall, it's a fun time. Before we get into mental health moment, I just want to throw this out there. If you've seen Sonic the Hedgehog 2, drop a follow, and also let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about it. Right in saying that this movie feels like a movie for gamers and not necessarily the general public. Alright, let's talk about mental health moments. Our content, mental health moment, is where we take a theme of mental health and we expand it for just a few minutes from the film that we are talking about in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. Alright, so early on in the film, we see that Sonic is kind of doing the superhero thing. What I'm about to say is not a spoiler in any way, shape, or form. In the first one, you know that one of his things that he liked to do to pass time was to read Flash comics. And, well, he took some of that stuff pretty seriously because, well, he became a superhero. In some fashion. Watch the movie to find out. Between him and James Marsden, where they're talking about understanding timing, understanding context, and kind of being able to read a situation. And I guess I'm speaking a little bit more to those of us that struggle with anxiety, because I have this tendency when someone is kind of telling me that they either have to talk to me or we need to talk or some variation thereof, my heart starts getting really fast. My blood starts getting real hot, and I start getting really, really nervous. Much like Sonic, we don't really want to have to wait we want to embrace the now. And sometimes embracing the now means going in head first and being untrained and being reckless and careless. And I know I'm kind of coming across as like that scene from 2002's Spider-Man Uncle Ben dropping Peter off at the library, but I think when it comes down to mental health, we need to be able to step back and breathe and analyze the situation. I know it's easier said than done. Sometimes the anxiety that we welcome when conversations like this occur don't do anything for us except stress us out. And how many of us watching this right now can add any time to our lives simply by stressing out? So my challenge to anyone watching this right now that might be anxious, slow down, enjoy the moment, breathe. You never know what breathing is actually going to end up doing for you, for your mental health, or for the situation at hand. Sometimes understanding context is the key to absolutely everything. I really hope that's an encouragement to anyone watching this right now. All right. Well, if you or someone you know needs any of our mental health resources, please check the link in the bio below and check out our mental health resource library. And you guys can check out Sonic the Hedgehog 2 now playing in theaters everywhere. Have a good night, guys.